Hey guys, Cameron here. Today I'm going to do the answer part to my Q&A video. I had quite a few people drop in some questions and I really appreciate that, more than what I was expecting. But I'm going to try to get to them all here in this video, so we'll try to hurry up and get to it. My family and I just got back from a car camping trip at Atlanta State Park in Atlanta, Texas. And this is the second fall that we've been out there, and we really enjoyed that park and we really enjoy car camping out there. And probably the biggest bombshell I'll ever drop on this backpacking channel is I actually enjoy car camping probably more than I enjoy backpacking. And I always enjoy going out with my family. I don't always video it and put it on YouTube because I have more fun just hanging out and being in the moment. But anyway, so here we go, get to the answers for this Q&A. All right, so my first question is from my friends the Texas Hikeaholics here on YouTube, and they said, we see the guitar, do you play? Referring to in my last video, I was holding a guitar. And then it says, do you have any other hobbies? What is your dream backpacking trip? So first off, yes, I do play guitar. I've played since I was 7. And I wouldn't say that I'm super good, but I have been playing for a while. So I do all right, enjoy playing like older country songs and just pretty much anything, but definitely more acoustic guitar than electric guitar. Do I have any other hobbies? No, not really. Play guitar, enjoy listening to music, and besides backpacking and camping, just hanging out with my family and doing whatever we happen to do in our spare time. And as far as my dream backpacking trip, I've always really wanted to do a trip in the Wind River Range. Any video or pictures I've seen from that area looks super cool. And we actually drove past the Wind River Range on our way back from Montana several years back, and just even being way off from them, they look super cool. So I've always really wanted to do a backpacking trip there, and I think that'd be really neat. All right, so next question, could you do another episode on your current gear and provide links? Stacy, yes, I will do another backpack loadout from what I'm normally carrying. I'll do that sometime this winter, and some stuff has changed, not much has changed, because I've really gotten to the point where most of the gear I have is working out really well for me, and I've been backpacking for a pretty good amount of time, so I've accumulated pretty much everything I need to accumulate, and I really enjoy a lot of the gear I have. But yeah, a few things have changed, and I will do another backpacking setup here in the next month or two, and I'll post that video on my channel. All right, next question is, I'm curious what you do for a living. You seem to have the ability to go backpacking quite often, so the reason that it may seem like that, even though I don't feel like I go backpacking a lot, is that I work shift schedule. So my schedule is constantly rotating between nights and days, and then I end up getting some random days off. Sometimes I'm off on the weekend, sometimes I'm off during the week. But built into my schedule, which is pretty nice, is I have 7 days off in a row each month, and that works out really well for me. I am an electrician, and it really provides me with a pretty good schedule other than swapping back from nights to days, as far as getting days off and being off during the week, which is really nice because it's really nice to go backpacking or camping during the week when most people are at work. All right, next one is, have you ever considered going to Mount Kilimanjaro or the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu as a change of pace? So obviously normally see a lot of my videos from around Texas, and have I ever considered those other ones? So I've never really thought much about Machu Picchu. The pictures look amazing. I just haven't personally ever wanted to go down there, maybe sometime in the distant future. Kilimanjaro I think would be really neat. I really enjoy like high pointing, doing state high points and things, and doing Kilimanjaro would be really cool. Also, just part of like life bucket list goals is go over there, do that, do like a safari, and visit that whole eastern side of Africa. I think is really cool. So yeah, I would love to do that sometime in the future. All right, so now a few questions about Guadalupe Mountains. So one question is, what Guadalupe Mountains National Park guides do you recommend? So I don't really use any sort of guides. I don't have any guidebooks or anything like that. So what I normally do whenever I'm trying to find a camping trip or a route or something that I would like to plan is, one, I do a lot of what everybody else does, get on YouTube, watch videos, but I try to search really specific things to do with Guadalupe Mountains. Another is I get on bigbenchat.com and go through some like really old posts on there. There's some really cool trips that people have done that have gotten buried way back in the forums. Get on Google, and then probably my favorite website on the internet is Google Maps, and I'll just get on there, zoom in, zoom out, satellite views, try to see what areas look like, and that's pretty much how I plan any of my routes out there. And so a lot of the times whenever we start out a trip, don't know exactly what we're getting into, but usually ends up working out pretty well, and I feel like we put quite a bit of thought into any trip that I do out there. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I don't have any specific guides. Google Maps, YouTube, Big Ben Chat, any of those things, and just you can even search Guadalupe Mountains blogs or something like that online, and I've found trips that way. So another question is, well, it says not really a question, but how about discussing 5 things about Guadalupe Mountains the average hiker doesn't know about? And that's a really great question, and I'm actually going to save that one for a separate video because I think that is really a cool topic. And so I am going to save that one, Michael, and I will do a whole separate video along those same similar lines. All of your content has been super helpful and motivating. What are your next trip plans? Any new gear you're looking at? So really hesitant to put out any sort of trip plans because of how 2020 went, and you never know how 2021 is going to go with pretty much everybody's plans going in the tank. So what I have planned basically now is a lot of Texas state parks and car camping and things like that with my family, a lot more local stuff, and then I would really like to hit up some more state high points. I've put a few on my channel, but we did several back before I even had this channel, and I really enjoy doing those state high points, not only for the hike up to the state high point itself, but just getting to the state high points. You get off of the main roads, and we end up seeing something really cool every time we drive to those. So hope to do some state high points this next year. Car camping, obviously probably go back to Guadalupe Mountains and backpack. And then also last year, or this year, earlier this year, 2020, I was hoping to do the Caney Creek Loop up in Arkansas after I did Eagle Rock Loop. And so hopefully I will be able to run up there at some point and do that as an overnight trip. As far as the gear that I'm looking into, kind of what I said before is I have most of the stuff I need, but a few things that I would like to get is a rechargeable headlamp. I think would be super convenient. I have an old Black Diamond Spot. It's not even their newest series. It doesn't have all the newest features, but I would definitely like to have a rechargeable headlamp. Is something that I hope to get pretty soon. And then in the future, I would really like to get another hammock tarp and maybe another hammock. So there's one for every member of our family, because I think it'd be super cool to either go car camping or backpacking and us all use hammock. Next one. So thinking on the difficulty of the trails at Guadalupe Mountains, of the listed places, which do you believe to be the hardest to easiest? And then it lists out these 5 trails or these 5 routes right here. And so starting with which one of these I think is the hardest, would definitely be McKittrick Canyon to McKittrick Ridge. That is the hardest hike in the park to me as far as on-trail hike. One is just super steep, but it goes on a really long way, and that's a tough hike. Next would be Wilderness Ridge, that also comes from McKittrick Canyon Trailhead. That's a pretty tough hike. It's really exposed, so anytime it's hot or even warm out there, sunny, it's going to be kind of a beating, but it's a really pretty trail, especially once you get up on top. Number 3 would be the Tejas Trail to Pine Top. So that's another really exposed trail. The Tejas Trail seems to me like it goes on way longer than the 3.5 miles or whatever it is up to Pine Top. So that's what makes that one tough to me. Then next is the El Cap Trail up to, or down, I should say, to the Shumard campsite. And a lot of people think that's an easy trail just because it doesn't go way up into the mountains. But actually it goes over lots of little ridges and then drops like 1,000 feet down the Shumard campsite. It's like a 10-mile hike out or something like that. So it's a really deceiving hike. It's tougher than what you think, and then you have to hike all the way back. One of the most gorgeous spots in the whole park and very underrated trail. It's harder than what it looks like. And then the easiest of the 5 is definitely Dog Canyon to Mescalero. and that's just because Dog Canyon sits up higher. It's a higher trailhead, and then going up to Mescalero, really not too tough of a hike. And yeah, definitely out of the 5, I would say that's the easiest one. All right, so next one. This one's a little different. This is from Uncle Paul, who I've been a subscriber to, and he's subscribed to me for a long time. Says, does your wife still have her coffee shop? And if so, tell us a bit about it. So I mentioned this quite a bit in some of my earlier videos. My wife had a coffee shop, cafe, restaurant in Keene, Texas for a few years, and she did really well. But luckily, and I definitely say luckily because of this year and everything that's happened, she sold that toward the end of last year. And we were really fortunate that that happened because of all the COVID and the shutdowns and everything that would have brought along with it. I'm just really fortunate to get out of that when we did. Like I said, she did really great with that. Everything went well, just ready to move on to something new, new direction in her life. And yeah, definitely with the COVID, super happy that we're not still dealing with the restaurant. The next one, any other off-trail Guadalupe Mountains hikes in your plans? And yeah, definitely, I have a ton of plans out there. I probably have 10 or 20 trips I have all in my mind, or saved in notes around places, things I would like to do. Just a couple: Guadalupe Peak, Shumard, Bartlett, and then Bush Mountain. Those are the 4 highest peaks in Texas. That's an off-trail route, and I would like to do that. But more specifically, I would like to do Shumard and Bartlett because I haven't done those 2, and I may end up just doing that as an off-trail route, just those 2 by themselves. So that is one route out there. And then I would like to do some off-trail over on the west and the northwestern parts of the park where there are really no trails. I don't know a whole lot about that. There's not a ton of information about any of those areas online. That's another one of those things I was talking about earlier about getting on Google Maps and looking around and trying to find any info that I can online. And yeah, that's a really unexplored part of the park, but I think it'd be really cool to get out there and see what's out there. All right, next one is we're doing the Guadalupe Ridge Trail in January. What's the expected weather? How cold at night? Still need to do water caches. Any tips? So January can definitely be hit or miss. I would definitely prepare for really cold and really windy. No telling what you'll get. Maybe you'll get a little bit milder days, but you could get some really cold, windy nights and days there on those exposed ridges in Carlsbad Caverns and through Lincoln National Forest. Water cache, I always think is be a good idea if you have the opportunity to do that. And I will tell you, the rangers will definitely ask you if you have cached water, and I think you'll have a hard time convincing them to write your permits without saying that you have put water caches out. That being said, there are some natural springs out there, and there are also some like cattle troughs and things like that that you can get water from. I'm not saying it can't be done without the caches. I'm just saying if you have the opportunity to do so, that would help make things way more convenient for you and for the rangers writing the permits. Next one, so just says Texas meetup question mark. I have talked about doing some sort of meetup, whether it's between just people who have YouTube channels or some sort of bigger backpacking meetup. And I know there's at least like Hammock Forums does one if you're into hammock camping. They do a meetup usually every year, and I think it's a pretty big deal. But I have tried to do a meetup in the past, and I felt really bad because obviously it's my thing. But with my job, sometimes they say, hey, you're working this day, and it might be next day or that weekend. And it's really hard to be able to say no or move plans around. So that's what happened to my last meetup that I planned. Was I had a trip planned out, had several people say they were going, and then I was the one that had to cancel, and I felt really bad about that. So I'm really hesitant to put out any sort of meetup, but depending on how things go next year, I may try to do something like that. We'll just have to see how work is going and things in my personal life, and then try to match that up with a good time for everybody to be able to do that. All right, so the next one's from Chuco Hiker, who you may have seen in my one of my most recent Guadalupe Mountains trips, my most recent backpacking trip out there. And that was the first time we had ever hung out and did a trip together, and it worked out really well. We got along great. And so this is kind of an inside thing, but do you like Taco Bell sauce? So yes, I do like Taco Bell hot sauce. I prefer hot, not mild and not fire, but I do enjoy Taco Bell hot sauce itself. As far as putting it on my couscous, I don't know if that sounds that great, but I know you liked it, so I may have to give it a try. Then how do you walk uphill so fast? So yeah, so going uphill is basically I am a little bit lazy and I just want to get it over with as quick as possible. So I just try to walk fast, not take breaks, so I can get to the top and be done with the uphill. Definitely not my favorite part of the trip. Just something that I try to personally power through to get it over with. Another one from Chuko Hiker is, if you could have one shelter, what would it be? And I know you don't see this on a ton of my trips, but honestly, if I could have one shelter just for me backpacking or car camping just for me by myself, would be the War Bonnet Ridge Runner hammock and some sort of tarp and underquilt and things like that. But a hammock, and especially a bridge hammock, is definitely the most comfortable setup that I have. The reason you don't see me carrying it on a lot of my trips is, one, it's quite a bit heavier than say like a Gatewood Cape or something like that. And then two, it's just the environments that I'm going into. So some places don't have trees set up well for it. Other places, like say Big Bend, don't allow hammocks. And so you don't see me carry it on all my trips, but I do really enjoy sleeping in a hammock. And the War Bonnet Ridge Runner has been my favorite for years now. Just way more comfortable than any gathered inn I've ever stayed in. And then lastly, Chuko asks, what's your #1 bucket list trail? And I've tried to think about that because that's a pretty big one. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot that I would really love to do, like the John Muir Trail someday. I'd really like to do the Colorado Trail, Arizona Trail. And then obviously the big ones. But I don't ever see myself doing any of the big ones like the Pacific Crest Trail or Continental Divide Trail, unless it's later in life. But some of those shorter ones, definitely the John Muir Trail. I know that's a popular pick, but hey, it's popular for a reason. I would love to do that sometime in the next few years. It looks super beautiful. And yeah, I've never been out that way, so I think it'd be really cool to check out. All right, here's another Guadalupe Mountains question. It says, you've got one last chance to do Pine Springs to Dog Canyon. So that's the Tejas Trail, basically runs straight between those two. It says, do you run the Bush Mountain route or the Tejas route? And if it's the Tejas route, do you go down the Manzanita Ridge route to Dog Canyon? And then it goes on to talk about not wanting to go off trail or in really thick overgrown trails. So if I was going to do it one time and I didn't want to get in any bushwhacking or thick trails, that's the key part to all this, I would definitely do the Tejas Trail. And then the Manzanita Ridge route's really cool. So if you're going to do an out and back from Pine Springs to Dog Canyon and then back to Pine Springs, what I would do is go up the Tejas Trail to Lost Peak, take the Manzanita Ridge route down to Bush Mountain Trail, and then take that over to Dog Canyon. And then on the way back, I would just take Tejas Trail straight back. If it was me personally and the trail condition didn't matter, that trip we just did, Chuko Hiker and I, we just did on the Bush Mountain Trail around that northwestern part of the park, that was super awesome. I love that section. The trail is non-existent in places and super hard to follow in other places. It's really thick. I wouldn't go out there without having some sort of map downloaded to my phone, or I mean, at the very least, a paper map. Yeah, that's a really cool section. But if you're going to do it just one time and don't want to get into anything crazy, the Tejas Trail is a cool trail. You're not going to get lost on that. It's not overgrown, but you could throw the Manzanita Ridge route on there to change it up just a little bit and make it a little bit of a loop. All right, next one is I like all your Texas-based videos. Curious if you've hiked in any other parts of the country, the Appalachians, Rockies, Sierras, things like that. So I've never done the Sierras, never been up there. The Rockies, so we have gone on some bigger road trips back before this channel was a thing, and we did a couple-week road trip up to Glacier in Montana. We've done some trips out to Utah, trips to Colorado, and those were all car camping trips. We did a bunch of day hikes. but we went to a ton of national parks on those trips, and really enjoyed all that. Like I said, I really enjoy car camping, and being able to do day hikes is super fun. As far as backpacking in other states, let's see, I did the Eagle Rock Loop earlier this year. That's Arkansas, and I think a lot of people from North Texas still kind of consider that our own backyard. You'll see a ton of Texans up there doing that because we don't have a lot of backpacking here in North Texas. But as far as like the biggest route that I've ever backpacked, I did about 150 miles of the Appalachian Trail, starting at Katahdin back whenever I was 20. And so I hiked south to Caratunk, or however you say that. And that was my trip back then. Looking back on it, I should have went farther than that. But I enjoy the memories of looking back on it now, and that was a really unique experience. So I was saying before, I don't think I would ever through hike any of the big trails until later in life, but it would be cool to do sections of the different trails and piece them together over a week or two at a time. So that's basically all the backpacking I've done. Everything else I've done has been either in Texas or some stuff with Boy Scouts, like I did film on a couple times in northern New Mexico whenever I was younger. But yeah, for the most part, mostly around north and central Texas, and then all my stuff you've seen on my channel out in West Texas. Here's the next one is, ever thought about doing the Lone Star Trail? So I've actually done part of the Lone Star Trail before. I did about 30 miles of it one time, and I absolutely hated it. And the reason I hated it was I was trying to pick a semi-dry time of year to go, a semi-dry section, and it hadn't rained down there for a pretty good while. But if you've hiked out there a bunch, you know it can be muddy, and it was exceptionally muddy. I was hiking in water and mud the entire time for the whole 30 miles, and I didn't really enjoy that. So maybe I should give it another shot, because that just stuck with me, and I remember coming back thinking I will never do that again. All right, another one is, what is your average base weight? And that's a tough one to answer because I change my setup on every trip depending on what I'm trying to do. I don't always change like all my gear out, but you'll definitely see me, hammock sometimes, stay in the Gatewood Cape sometimes, a tarp with nothing else under it. You'll see me in a tent, all sorts of different stuff. Just depends on what I'm trying to do. And obviously it's a huge difference between doing a multi-day trip out at Guadalupe Mountains, where I'm going to be carrying gallons of water, as opposed to doing, say, like Eagle Rock Loop, where I'm going to be carrying 1 liter of water, or somewhere around here where I'm going to be carrying 2 or 3 liters of water. So my food and water weight is one of the biggest factors that I determine what else I'm going to carry. If I'm not carrying much water, I feel like I can bring more. That's why you saw me bring like my hammock set up on the Eagle Rock Loop, because I'm not carrying much other weight. Out when I go to Guadalupe Mountains, if I'm carrying multiple gallons of water, that's a lot of weight. And that's why I tend to use like a Gatewood Cape out there that doesn't weigh much. I try to keep my base weight down as low as possible because I'm going to be carrying so much more water out there. So I have literally done a trip at Guadalupe Mountains where my base pack weight, everything besides my water and food, was under 5 pounds, including my pack and everything was less than 5 pounds. And my overall pack weight was 27 pounds because I was carrying so much water and food. That's just the way it goes out there. I think on this last backpacking trip I did out there, I know my pack was a little bit heavier. It was still definitely under 10 pounds, but with all the water and food was still up around 27, 28 pounds. So pretty heavy. That's why I try to keep my stuff as light as possible so I can carry more water and go certain places. I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to carry 30 plus pounds of gear. I don't want to carry 40 pounds of gear. I have a hard enough time around 25 pounds. I'm going to start complaining. So I definitely like to keep my overall weight around 10 or 15 pounds. So I try to keep everything else as light as possible. I have a video on my channel of a gear list that I did at Guadalupe Mountains that's a little less than 10 pounds. And that is like what I would normally take out there. It's not me trying to be a superhero or anything. It's just an ultralight setup. So I think it's like 9.5 pounds or something close to that. And I'll post a link to that down below if you would like to look at that. But anywhere between 5 to 12 pounds, that's going to be my basic pack weight on almost every trip I go on. I've kind of gotten to where I don't add up each individual piece of gear. a lot of the times, especially over the last year or two, I have no idea what my pack weight is. And I've gotten way more comfortable doing that. I know that it's lightweight. I know about to the nearest pound or two what it is, but I don't know 100%, just kind of guessing. And yeah, it's way less stressful. I really enjoy just being able to grab my stuff and go without worrying to the nearest tenth of an ounce what I'm carrying. But yeah, definitely 5 to 12 pounds is my normal base pack weight. All right, so the next one is going out on a 3-day, 2-night trip to do Guadalupe Peak, and gonna have another day or two to be able to day hike around. What are some hikes that you suggest? Some really great day hikes out of Guadalupe Mountains is McKittrick Canyon, at least to the grotto. It's pretty much all flat. That's a really nice trail. Devil's Hall is a really fun, easy trail with a little bit of boulder hopping and rock scrambling. Nothing too crazy, but that's a fun trail. I really enjoy the Smith Spring Trail. That's a pretty easy one, and Smith Springs a really pretty area. And then another kind of overlooked one because it's not there at Pine Springs is the Gypsum Sand Dunes. That's a really cool area that has a 1 mile out and back trail to get into the sand dunes and see the western side of the Guadalupe Mountains. All right, so I think I got to everybody's questions. If I missed some, I apologize, but I think I got them all. Sorry this drug out so long. This is my first Q&A. I'll really work on getting the timing down. But I wanted to get to everybody's questions because I really appreciate all y'all asking. I really appreciate everybody's support on my channel, and this was fun. I enjoyed answering some questions, and a couple of these really made me think, especially the ones about bucket list trails and if I could do one backpacking trip and things like that. Those really made me think because that's a tough question. But I appreciate everybody's questions. If any of y'all have any more questions, just ask and I'll reply to your question down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.